When we
Power Plug Radio.
Good evening, good evening.
Home of your throwback jams.
Good evening, everyone. You are listening to Power Plug Radio, and this is the African Queen. And you're listening to Taboo Talk. You can listen to us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can also find us on YouTube. You can also go to the Play Store, the Apple Store, and you can say, hey, Alexa, play Power Plug Radio. And if all else fails, you can go to www.powerplugradio.com. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's going to be a little bit different tonight. You won't be seeing my beautiful face tonight. I'm not in studio, but I still am coming to you live. And tonight we have our co-host for the night, Mr. LaDon Hedden, coming in from Cleveland, Ohio. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, African Queen. How are you today?
I'm making it. That's what I'm doing today. I'm making it.
African Queen, I have a hypothetical, rhetorical question for you.
Okay.
If my 10-year-old daughter steals some Doritos from the corner store, should I go to jail?
No.
What if my 14-year-old son steals a bike? I'm the person who should go to jail.
No. No.
Well, in a novel idea, the prosecutors in Michigan are charging the parents of 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley, who is charged for killing 4 people and injuring 7 others, with involuntary manslaughter, even though they didn't pull the trigger. What do you think about that?
With our topic being what it is tonight, it fits directly into that. And honestly, my opinion, I agree with that because of the circumstances surrounding what has happened with the parents' direct involvement in the ability of that boy to perpetrate the crime that he did.
Okay, so let's speak a little bit about the crime so we can give details so anybody listening can understand, even if they haven't heard. So last week, November 30th, Ethan Crumbley, a 15-year-old from Oxford, Michigan, is being charged for murdering 4 people, 4 students, and injuring 7 others in his school. Now, separate from that, his parents are being charged for 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter for the people he killed. That is Jennifer and James Crumbley. Now, they heard about this, and they went on the run, African Queen. Not only that, they were on a manhunt for over a day until they were caught last Saturday. So,
and where were they caught? Where were they caught?
They were in Detroit, aka Detroit City. so they went from Iceland, Michigan to Detroit. They were hiding out in Detroit. I guess they thought they were blended in. I don't know. Now, here's why here's why a little more details on why a lot of people think this idea of charging the parents with the crime of their child is different. For them, they bought a 9mm handgun just a few days before the 15-year-old Ethan committed the crime. They
on Black Friday.
Yep. On Black Friday. They got the deal. They were trying to save some money. You know how it is. They stored it in an unlocked drawer, and when searching for ammunition on his cell phone in school, he was observed by his teacher. This teacher in the school tried to contact his mother, but they couldn't find her. African Queen, do you know what she ended up doing after she found out the school was looking for her?
Okay, you're not going to be surprised. Go ahead. Tell me what she did.
She did not call the school back, but she did text her son, LOL, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn to not get caught.
Wow. Wow.
She didn't call the school back.
Said, you searching for ammo. Now, okay, so let me ask a question. Was there any indication that this young man had any kind of, had he been ill and disturbed? I'm not going there. I want to know, was there any evidence that he had showed any kind of aggression, or had he gotten caught looking up information about killing people or anything? Or was he mad at a girl at his school, anything like that?
Well, the day of the shooting, reports from MSNBC and other news outlets said that the day of the shooting, a different teacher had saw some drawings he did of a gun and a bullet with the words, blood everywhere, help me, my life is useless. So when the school kind of saw this kind of behavior, again, they called the parents were called to the school. So the school said, you need to come down here and see this. So the idea that their son was doing this, they never came to the school. Even though the school reached out to them and say, hey, we think your son might have a problem.
Okay, so here's my take. Here's my take on it. I believe that in certain cases, as in this case, because I believe that there are some other things that have come up. I mean, honestly, first of all, what kind of parents are you that your child just got arrested and you dip? You just leave. You on the run. I mean, come on. That's my first thing. But, there have been so many different crimes in the past where the parents have either enabled the child to be able to commit the crimes, or sometimes we're just directly involved in the crime. And I feel, and there have been many times that those parents either were never charged. In many cases, these parents are never charged. I know I was reading an article, and the title of the article is that parents of shooters are rarely held accountable. And so I know that this can be a slippery slope, because you brought up a very good point in those first questions that you asked, was if my child steals a bag of potato chips. Back in the day, if you skipped school, the truancy officer could come and arrest your parents if you skipped school too many times. But it was more so to teach the parents, you need to watch over your kids a little bit more. We know that things can get out of hand. So where is the line drawn? So for me, in cases like the affluent teen out of Texas who came from an affluent family in Texas, who was driving with a suspended license. His parents gave him the keys. They knew his license was suspended. They knew he had a drinking and a drug problem, but they continued to allow him to take the car out to go to parties. He ended up killing 4 people, injuring a total of 9.
Is this Ethan Couch in Texas you're talking about?
Ethan Couch from Texas. And then he was, after all of that, 4 people died because of him. He was put on probation. But even while he was on probation, he constantly broke probation. His parents did not stop him. He wasn't allowed to drink. He wasn't allowed to go to parties. He wasn't supposed to be around certain groups of people. He was still doing all of that. And so finally what happened was when the judge said enough is enough, his mom took him and fled to Mexico. Because she still felt, I'm going to help my kids.
That's aiding a fugitive. So she aided a fugitive. Okay.
Yeah, and now in that case, she did end up going to jail, but not for all of the other stuff. She went to jail because she was aiding and abetting. You know, not for the fact that as a parent she failed this kid and allowed him to do all of these things that ended up impacting the lives of so many. Just like in the case of this young man here, who has now his death toll is now up to 4 because I believe a fourth student did pass away from their injuries.
And we're talking about the other Ethan. We're talking about the other Ethan.
Yeah, the new Ethan.
This is Ethan Clemens.
Right. Okay. So, note to everyone: don't name your child Ethan. I'm just saying. But just it's a hard thing as a parent. As a parent of one that I gave birth to, and several that my heart has adopted and loved. Being a parent is not an easy thing, and we question our decisions and our choices. But as a grown adult, I know right from wrong. I felt some kind of way. I think all of the mass shootings that have happened in school have hit me. I remember when Columbine first happened, all those years ago. But I think the one that hit me the most was Sandy Hook.
Of course.
And I think the reason why that one hit me because it was the age of the victim. These elementary school students. These students didn't do anything to this boy. Usually it's the kid is mad at somebody at his school, or a girl rejected him, or whatever. But he went after defenseless, innocent little kids. And the part that got me was
elementary school. This was an elementary school, and they were very young children.
Very young children. Now, the first person that he killed was his mother, with the weapon that his mother had purchased. His mother was an avid gun enthusiast, as they put it. Now, this woman had an arsenal. The father did not agree. If I remember right, the parents weren't together. And I remember that was the first one that hit me. And yes, the mother was gone. The mother was dead. But I feel that in those cases, in cases like that, the parent needs to be held responsible, because I just don't feel that a teenage child should have access to weapons. Weapons, especially when your child is unstable. And he was unstable.
I think that's an excellent point, Anthony Queen. But I think the biggest difference might be, well, in this case, or the legal argument, because I would agree with you in many cases that, yes, those parents should be held accountable. But I think the legal precedent that these prosecutors in Michigan are trying to do is these parents directly contributed to these murders. Not that they were, right? So if in the hypothetical, my daughter stealing some Doritos, right? I didn't say, hey, what tastes really good? Doritos. You know how they taste better? If you don't eat them. If you don't pay for them, rather. If you eat them but don't pay for them. Right? That would be different than my child went off and did something I was not expecting to do. I think these prosecutors in Michigan might have a case because of not only just neglect, but this almost sounds like encouragement, right? With the search of the LOL, I'm not mad at you, but next time don't get caught, while he gets caught in school. And then when the school is like, hey, there's a bunch of warning signs, red flags everywhere, they can't be found. It's almost like they made themselves where they did not want to own up to what was happening. And I think because of that, I think that's more than just neglect, right?
I agree. So at what point, where do we draw the line at holding the parents accountable?
Okay. That's an excellent point. So, in the case of Ethan Couch, you mentioned earlier, I I think part of it might come from, do these parents have knowledge that there is a potential crime about to happen? Right? I think so. I wouldn't personally, like my kids, they're individuals, right? And kids make bad choices. They do stuff. As a child, I did dumb stuff, but I did it without my mother knowing, right? So
Right.
I think that could be some kind of legal argument where, maybe a defense could say, well, you can't charge me because I didn't even know my kid was doing anything like this. I think in the case of Ethan Crumbley, man, I mean, he was looking up how to buy ammunition and drawing pictures of him shooting people. And the school is like, hello, we're telling you, like, this didn't sneak up on them. And the sad fact is, when they found out charges were pressed against them, they didn't go and try to defend their son. They fled the city. They were like, we're out. I don't know. I think that's where the line is. It's like knowledge. Is it knowledge of a potential or incipient crime, or do the parents do anything that can contribute? I think buying this kid a gun on Black Friday, whether they present it to him as a gift or not, he was aware that they purchased this thing on Black Friday. He wouldn't even have a weapon if it wasn't for their action. So I think in that case, they definitely contributed to him doing the crime, as opposed to, oh, we don't know where he got it from, or we had no idea he was going to do this. What do you think?
And I would agree with you. In the case of Texas Ethan, I do feel that Ethan Couch, I do feel that the parents should have been held accountable from the get. Number one, he wasn't given any wasn't given any time because he was an affluent teen, and it was deemed that he would not fare well in prison, is how it was put, in that because of his upbringing. But my argument is that because of his upbringing, because his parents still gave him the keys to the car, even though he had multiple incidents where, to the point that his license at 17 years old had been revoked, that his parents still allowed him, knowing he had a drinking and a drug problem, and they constantly, it's just like, basically they didn't hand him a gun, but they allowed him to have a car, which was a weapon that was able to murder 4 people. So
actually, I think that was when he was 16 at the time. But he wasn't even 17.
His parents, and he's not being taught that. His mother, what's this new Ethan's name?
Ethan Crumbley is.
Ethan Crumbley's mother definitely was not teaching him that there were consequences to his actions. When she texted him and told him, "I'm not mad at you, just don't get caught." I mean, come on.
Well, I think something you made a good point. The other Ethan Couch in Texas, that was about 8 years ago. But even with that, something you said, the parents gave him the keys, even though he should not have been driving them when he was a prostitute. So if Ethan Crumbley's case set the precedent, parents like Ethan Couch, his parents would have been arrested as well. See, so I don't think those people were, the prosecutors in that case, it sounds like the prosecutors and even the judge, that law team in Texas, was very lenient on him. But it sounds like if they're able to set a national precedent, then, like you said, this could deter actions from. See, I think it's more than just enabling, right? This is more than enabling. This is enhancing, or they're adding to it. They're not just enabling. Almost indicates, well, I was negligent or I wasn't paying attention to my child. And in both cases, it sounds like the child wouldn't have committed these crimes if it were the parents. It was true because of the parents that they had the ability to commit these crimes.
I agree.
That's an excellent point, and it's unfortunate, but I hope that even though it's a lesser charge, involuntary manslaughter is a serious charge. And Jennifer and James Crumbley, I think they should definitely be prosecuted and hopefully will be found guilty. And I hope it does set a precedent, because then it will spark parents to be more proactive in their child's behavior, especially when it's red flags like looking up ammunition. It's almost like he was crying out for help and doing this stuff in a public forum like school, where he was drawing these drawings and looking up things. And these parents were more than just negligent. I want
to add the argument that, as children, I remember there were things that I watched my parents do. And I was very attentive as a child of how my parents reacted to what I did. So, if I did something wrong and I got in trouble, the little flag went off in my head. Okay, I'm not going to do that again. But if I did something and my parents clapped, applauded, gave me that a boy, then that's something that, okay, well, you know what? If my parents are saying it's okay, if my mom tells me it's okay, just don't get caught next time, then
that's encouragement.
That's
encouragement, not enablement.
Right. And as a child whose brain is still developing, what is that saying to them? I mean, when they put those things together in their head, what kind of person are you, what kind of adult are you possibly creating? Now, this boy, he acted out before he could become an adult. But what kind of human being are you creating as being a parent to say things like that? So there's an instance of a young man. His name is Christopher Belter. And Christopher Belter is a young man. We kind of heard about him. His case kind of got overshadowed by Kyle Rittenhouse and the Ahmaud Arbery case. But he's a young man who basically admitted rape and pled guilty to rape to 4 young women and was given probation. Now, that whole thing about him being given probation about raping these 4 young women, that's a whole different topic. But the reason why I'm bringing Christopher Belter up is because there is overwhelming evidence that his mother and his stepfather helped him get these girls to his home in order to sexually assault them.
Oh no! So they were acting as the Ghislaine Maxwell to his Jeffrey Epstein.
Basically, where to the point that the boy's father is a very well-known lawyer at some big law firm in New York. His mother is also a lawyer, and his stepfather runs some big manufacturing company. Now, his stepfather has been charged with supplying alcohol to teenagers back in 2016 to justice. But it's been shown that they not only helped, but they kind of groomed these young women and then invited them over for them to be sexually assaulted by this young man. Now, how you tell your, I don't think the conversation went this way, but hey mom, I'm feeling it, and I want a piece of ass tonight. And your mama said, well, let me make a phone call for you. I mean, and because that's basically what it boils down to is what these parents did. Now, should these parents be held responsible for the sexual assault of these young women? In my opinion, yes, they should.
Okay,
They should be held responsible.
I wouldn't disagree. And like I said, something you pointed out earlier, that it's rarely done where the parents are charged with any kind of criminal charges against them for the acts of their children. But I do think there should be a line, and it should be a clear and present line. And I'm hoping that what results of this particular case sets a precedent so we can protect our children in their way and make sure that this doesn't repeat, because it's starting to look like a trend.
Well, I mean, I think that this is we can go back in history and see how people have not been held accountable for their actions, whether they were children or adults. Right. Yeah, because this comes down to accountability. You know, the woman who got just that quick his name went out my head, y'all. I apologize. The young boy who was back in the day who was lynched and killed in Mississippi because the white woman said
Emmett Till.
You know, and she has now come out and admitted that it was all made up. And she still was not held accountable. So we know that people are certain people are not held accountable for their actions, even when they come out later and basically say, yeah, I made it all up. But what do we do to change this? What precedent needs to be set in order to make people think twice? And here's the thing. What do you think is going to happen if that precedent is set? You and I were talking earlier, and I said, okay, so let's say that they find this mom and dad guilty. Like Darius said, lock up the whole damn delinquent family. That's what he just said. So let's say that they find them guilty. So does that lead to locking up the parents of a serial killer? You know, we know now from the study of serial killers that serial killers just don't become serial killers one day. They have tendencies that they start showing at very young ages. Many times parents either ignore them or they try and pray it away or whatever, or the parent is actually the cause of the issues that these serial killers have. Now, do we turn around and say, okay, you ignored this with your child growing up, and now your child has a death count of 25 people? Do we then hold those parents accountable?
I think so. I mean, that's. I feel like we're answering the same question over because yes, I mean at this point, you asked earlier, what happens if this does set a precedent? And I believe your other question was, what happens if it doesn't? Was that one of the questions?
Yeah, so if it does set a precedent, and these parents are found guilty,
yep.
Where is that line drawn? What parents are held accountable, and what parents are not held accountable?
Right. So,
in your opinion.
In my opinion, I think I think a couple of things should come into play. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know anything about law, but it seems to me that it would be obvious if the parents had knowledge of the crime prior to it happening, or a potential or incipient crime, or the actions they took help precipitate the crime. Like we mentioned in both Ethan's cases, he wouldn't have shot anybody if he didn't have a gun. He might have thought about it, and he might have felt terrible, and he clearly needed some sort of counseling. But he wouldn't have had the means to do it, or even couch, like you mentioned. If his parents hadn't handed keys while he was intoxicated, well, then there's no way he could have committed. He would not have accidentally killed people through drunk driving, or neglectfully, not accidentally, but more neglectfully, killed people. Has become a national president, which is good, but that's the argument. And I think if you can prove that, look, what they did contributed or precipitated this, or they knew this, like, even if he had his own gun, let's say he had his own weapon that they did not buy, but they knew that he was drawing pictures of himself shooting people, or saying things like, or looking up ammunition, or how to run from the law. And they were aware of this, which it sounds like Ethan Crumley's parents were, or at least the school attempted to. Then yes, I think that's a lie. That's definitely a lie.
Now, we also know that many times when a precedent is set, that unfortunately, or a law is put into place, that unfortunately it's been used, it's used incorrectly. It was the whole Trayvon Martin case with stand your ground.
Okay, that
was grossly, in many ways, where you had that abuser do nothing but fire again. She fired the gun in the air. That
was
now
that in Florida. Was that in Florida?
A long time. It was a big fight, and the social media got involved. She was set free, but she was gonna put this woman in jail. And she shot the gun up in the air, and the only reason why she did that was because when she was trying to escape the house, the way she went, she got cornered. She missed to get past him. She was able to get him for attempted murder for life. Luckily, she did get off. So we know that laws can be manipulated to the will of the prosecutor to be held accountable. I think is that if this president is set, then be turned to hurt parents of color, a white child, and they the same criteria as these two.
That this is being tried. Is it most or if not all that could in the same way a state law could be?
Here's the thing: many laws come from precedents that are set in court. So, and that's the part, and that's the world that we live in, where justice, like in the case of these parents actually being charged as accessories to the murder of these children, justice to me is being served that these parents have been arrested and they're sitting in the same jail as their child. To me, that is justice. But it's unfortunate that, something like this could be manipulated. We set a precedent, other states start finding laws, because it used to be a law in the book that if your child was truant, that, so many truancies and the parent could be arrested. But who's to say what number is truant? If for a white parent, it could be, oh, your kid's been, tardy 25 times. Okay, we're going to arrest you. Or for a parent of color, it could be your child's been, tardy 2 times. We're going to come and arrest you. So, that's the scary part about this. That's the scary part about trying to do the right thing, is if the right thing is then turned around and used against a different group.
Well,
does that make sense?
That's a thought. And see, and I would say, from what you were saying before, justice is not just that these parents were arrested, but that they will be convicted of the crime.
Yes.
That's when I think you would see the justice that we're looking for.
I would hope so. I would hope that if they are found guilty, then parents like Kyle Rittenhouse's mother, who drove him across state lines with an illegal weapon that allowed him to do the harm that he did. In my opinion, his mama should have been up on charges too. That's how I feel, because, his mother, and then on top of that, the boy got off. I just feel that his mother should be up on charges. You know, I mean, there are many cases. I know that I was watching a documentary on this guy who ended up being a serial killer. My mother told me about it, and I started watching pieces of it. I had to stop, but he became a serial killer, but he doesn't remember committing any of the crimes because he suffered from split personality. And so he would always commit the crime under one of his other personalities. But what came out was that his stepfather horribly abused him. And to the point it was beyond abuse, it was torture. And because of that, that's what created the split personality. In my opinion, that man, if that man was still alive, he needed to be up under the jail with the man who committed the murders. Or at least the man who committed the murders need to be getting help, and his stepdaddy should be in jail. You know, so that's my opinion. I know how I would feel. I know how, and to be honest, I know how I feel. My niece was killed in a car accident. She was a young woman on her way to work on a Saturday morning. She was a senior at Florida State. The young woman who hit her was drunk and high and speeding, and she killed her. After she killed her, we found out that this was not the first time that this young lady had been in trouble, and we found out that her parents constantly bailed her out. So, you know, to know how that feels personally on a certain level, I could only imagine what some of these parents are feeling, the parents of these children who got killed at this school. How are they feeling about the fact that these parents bought their kid a gun on Black Friday, and now their children are gone? You know, they can never get their children back. So, you know, it's such a touchy subject. I don't know how that's going to be handled. I think this is going to be this is going to be around for a while, and I don't think we're going to get an answer to this anytime soon. But I hope that justice is served. I hope that we're able to see that these parents are held accountable for their actions. And I also hope that this boy is held accountable for his actions.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. And to be honest, I'm going to be more optimistic. I'm going to say this won't take that long. I think this is pretty cut and dry, at least from some of the facts that have come out from the reports. This seems very cut and dry. I mean, it's not like I'm going to serve on a jury, but even just a few points that the news is making, that the media is making, that they did not lock this gun up. They knew that he had problems. He was either depressed or doing things, and the school was actively trying to warn them that he would do this. These parents definitely need to be convicted. I think this, and I'm, like I said, I'm going to be confident and say this won't take long at all. I'm going to go with this one is going to move expeditiously, as Joe Clark would say, and these folks should be convicted quick. So, well,
I'll try and keep on some of your optimism and hope that we do see this, because right now I'm not as optimistic, you know, and you probably know a lot more that the media is saying about this case than me, because I can't even watch the news anymore, because I feel as though many times, you know, they start to make a case in the media for, you know, now I will say this. I do think that when the parents did what they did and they fled, that the media was on the right side of this time.
Well, African Queen, funny enough, that not only did they flee, now that they got separate legal counseling from their son. So they don't even they have their own lawyer.
Did they hire their son a lawyer, or did they get their own lawyer?
They hired their own lawyer, and then he had to go get his own lawyer. So again, I don't know if that's normal. I've not been to law school, But I can tell you, in the court of public opinion, that looks sus. These parents do not look like good people at all.
Well, and I'm not trying to justify them, but I do know in the Ahmaud Arbery case, the father and the son did have separate lawyers.
Okay.
So I don't know if maybe that is just something, it may be hard. That's three people that one lawyer has to represent. But then you also have to look at what were your reasonings for wanting a separate lawyer. Did your kid's lawyer tell you to get a separate lawyer, or did you just say, no, don't put me in the same barrel as him? I want to plead my own case. So yeah, this whole thing just to me boils down to horrible parenting.
Yeah.
just off the rip, horrible parenting.
They sound like selfish people, right? They sound like just very self-centered, selfish people who are, in this case, it does not sound like they are very caring of their son. Like they're not looking out for him. And like I said, it sounds like he was asking for help, and they were either nowhere to be found or purposely avoided trying to help him.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with your what you're seeing because, of course we don't know his life, we don't know everything, but just this little snippet of what we're seeing of their parenting, I wouldn't even want to know what this boy's life was like, because obviously you're ignoring like red flashing lights that your child needs help. Because what kid knows that looking up ammunition while at school, obviously where your teachers in your class, maybe I do want to get caught kind of thing.
Right. That's
and
again,
to turn around, and then to turn around and get a message from your mom saying, non-existent parenting skills all the way around.
And it sounds like, right, she knew that the school was trying to contact her because she texted him in response to them trying to reach her. So she definitely knew something was up.
So my question to you is, at what point did they actually flee? Was it when charges were brought against them? Was it when all of the stuff came out in the media? When was it that they actually fled the state?
Yeah, so actually after charges were pressed, it looks like about 3 hours later, the local sheriff, the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, actually posted that he was looking for them. And it sounds like when the media reported that the police were looking for them, that's when they decided to flee Oxford, Michigan. So I'm not exactly sure. Go ahead.
That's crazy. So it wasn't even that, because I was about to say that was bad police work if y'all put out there's a warrant for their arrest and, we need, because, to me, but it doesn't even look like there was even warrants put out for their arrest yet. They were just looking for them because they wanted to talk to them and they couldn't find them. So the way I see this is that the minute that it was their child identified as the killer, they did.
So New York Times had reported even worse. New York Times had reported that while many parents were calling the school to see if it was their child who got caught, that they had called this, they had actually texted with Ethan Crumbly, Ethan, don't do this. So where other parents are calling their kids and saying, hey, are you okay? They almost knew once they heard the reports of a shooting at his school that he would have been the person to do this. So that's another thing that I think will contribute why I think these folks are going under the jail. Why I do think they'll get convicted of this, because there's too many things that even that indicate that they even knew this was going to happen sooner than later. And they didn't do anything. In fact, like I said, it sounds like they encouraged the behavior with through text, as opposed to even discourage, hey, or wasn't until after the fact that they even texted them, hey, don't do this. At this point, it's on the news that someone was shooting at the school, so it's too late at that point.
It's like, yeah, you already knew that your kid was capable of this, and you had no doubt, that it was your kid shooting up the school. That's
right. And you suspected it was your kid who was doing the crime. Once you heard it was a crime, you're like, no, they didn't release who the shooter was. They just said that.
I know it was my kid.
Right.
Come on.
Like I said, other parents were like, "Are you okay? Or where are you at? Are you hiding?" They were like, "Hey, stop shooting people." Like, huh? How you know it was me?
Yeah, and to bring another point of the type of child that they raised, it was said that that it was caught on video of him trying to impersonate a sheriff to get access to one of the classrooms that was locked down.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And I saw the video, and the students was like, because I guess he finally got frustrated because the teacher was just like, you know what, I don't feel safe opening this door yet, and so you could hear him say something. He was like, bruh. And the kids was like, nope. They was like, red flag. And you could hear the kids saying, nope, red flag. And they started falling out of the window.
Right. And a police officer or sheriff's department would not say, bruh.
Right. And they're not going to argue with the teacher if the teacher is saying, I don't feel safe to open this door because I have a classroom full of students. And I guess, to boil this conversation down, these parents are now going to be along with their son, will now be responsible for trauma to students that could last the rest of their lives. Because these students went to school with this boy. They went to school with the 4 children who were murdered. They went to school with the other 3 that were injured. If you look at, I'm sorry, the other 7 that were injured. I mean, and if you look at most of the shootings that have happened around this country at schools, especially that one that was here, we had students who committed suicide a year and 2 years after that shooting because they couldn't deal with the trauma of what they went through. These parents are now, I feel, directly responsible for the trauma that these children and their brains are still developing. So this trauma could sit with them for the rest of their lives. And now that means not only have you caused and allowed this trauma to happen to these children, now it's going to not only happen to them, it is going to happen to their loved ones because their loved ones are now going to suffer through this with them. So right. There is such an impact to that community because of the bad parenting. What it 100% boils down to is bad parenting of 2 people.
Oh. Yeah. And apparently some kind of a need for counseling for this kid. And these people, their negligence and, like I said, encouragement of this, I would say, violent behavior. That's right.
But we could talk about this for another hour. It's so much to unpack and to dig at, and it's a sad and it's an unfortunate incident. And my thoughts and my love and goes out to all of those children and the families of those who unfortunately lost their lives in that incident and all school shooting incidents that have happened through this country. So, my condolences to everyone on that. We will be back next week. Not that the topic is going to be any better, but next week we will be talking about, and LaDon, I'm going to let you tell everybody what our topic will be for next week.
Why don't we protect our women? And this is in regards to a recent case involvement with Jeffrey Epstein.
And then for those of you who don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is, I want to know what rock you have been under for the past couple of years. But yeah, right now she's on trial, and we'll dig into that a little bit more next week. We hope that you join us. And if at any time you have a topic that you want us to cover, please reach out and give us that topic, and we will do our research and cover it to the best of our ability. And I want to say thank you for listening in tonight to Taboo Talk on Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jam.
When we